On May 20, 2024, a notice of this meeting was transmitted to the Board of Education, and a copy of the notice was posted at the Education Center bulletin board. Copies were also transmitted to the Millburn Short Hills Item, the Star Ledger, the Millburn Short Hills Independent Press, Tap Into Millburn Short Hills, the Township Clerk and members of the Township Committee, the presidents of the PTO and civic associations, and the Public Library. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular and two closed sessions of the meeting of April 21st, 2025? Mr. Reddy, Mr. Lawrence can second. Any comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Nope. All right, we have 4 presentations tonight. Some good stuff. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Diskin. You can get started.
So good evening, everyone. We're going to start with recognizing Dan Davis tonight for his extraordinary accomplishment of being named the Cintas Corporation Custodian of the Year. And the Board of Education has a proclamation which Mr. Heinrichs could read. Would you like to read it, or would you like me to read it?
Go ahead.
I'll read it. Okay, there you go. Sure. This is a proclamation honoring Custodian of the Year, Daniel Davis. Whereas the Millburn Township Board of Education recognizes that the custodians and maintenance workers are hardworking individuals who dedicate countless hours to providing a clean and safe environment for our staff, students, and community who occupy district facilities. And whereas Cintas Corporation recognizes the significant contribution of custodians through their annual Custodian of the Year contest. And whereas Daniel Davis, custodian of Deerfield Elementary School, was selected from thousands of applicants nationwide based upon his unwavering dedication to the Millburn Township School District as the Cintas Corporation 2025 Custodian of the Year. And whereas we are proud to recognize and appreciate the significant contributions of Mr. Davis and to celebrate this achievement, now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Millburn Township Board of Education officially recognizes and celebrates Mr. Daniel Davis as Custodian of the Year on May 5th, 2025, and expresses heartfelt and be it further proclaimed that this proclamation shall be published in the minutes of the meeting of the Board of Education this 5th day of May. With congratulations to Mr. Davis.
Thank y'all. I'm trying not to cry because it's truly a shock. I'm trying to keep myself together. Please give me a minute. It is an honor to work for Millburn District. Some of you I know, some of you I don't, but I feel you will get to know me. I have a commitment to excellence. Doesn't matter where you come from or who you are. And it's been a pleasure coming here and working with such beautiful people. Thank you. And before anyone asks, my wife has already took the check. So I'm going to say that now. But I truly, truly thank y'all for just taking the time to vote, whether it was 1 or 20. It meant a lot. And I thank all of y'all. And I'm going to move out of y'all way because I'm going to cry. Thank y'all so much.
And thank you for all the Bulldogs that came out to cheer. The kids were amazing and the staff was amazing during that assembly. I think I heard them down the block. So with that, we congratulate Deerfield and Dan Davis. Next, we have our literacy leaders from South Mountain School. We have Mr. Wolf and Ms. Heather Fiore here to present literacy leaders.
Just waiting for the projector to turn on. Yes, sir.
I'd like to know who came up with this order where we have to follow Dan. I don't even know how that's possible. So we will certainly do our best, but that's a tough act to follow. So thank you, everyone, for allowing us to be here this evening. I know there are 4 presentations, and we will certainly keep it short, but we wanted to express how important Literacy Leaders is to us across the state of New Jersey and how much it meant for South Mountain to be selected to be one of the visiting schools for these leaders to come and work with our students, our staff, administrators. So we're very excited. We were very excited about that, and I will let Heather explain exactly what Literacy Leaders is.
So Literacy Leaders is a group of elementary administrators, and not just elementary, there's a lot of K-12 administrators involved in this group, that we came together probably over a decade ago because we wanted to further our professional development, and we didn't all want to work in silos, but we wanted to learn and build things together. So South Mountain, this was the second time actually that we've been chosen to be a host site for their professional learning, and a lot of it is because of the contribution South Mountain has made over the various other meetings across the state when we go. We do have meetings about 5 times a year. We can't always obviously get to them with school events, but we try to get to as many as possible. But because of all the contributions we've made, we were selected this year as a host site because they were highlighting our commitment to literacy and excellence and collaborative growth.
You have to get a little taller, so I don't have to keep doing it. So as you can see why South Mountain School, I don't need to read each of those to you, but like Heather said, it's because of our commitment to the literacy programs and excellence, and also the supportive community that works with us at South Mountain and across the district that recognizes the importance of literacy instruction and best practices.
I'm going to read you a very important quote from a very famous person. She's brilliant. It's me. Literacy leaders in elementary education plant the seeds of lifelong learning, nurturing young minds while empowering educators through professional growth, transforming classrooms into thriving communities of readers and thinkers. And that's really at the heart of what we do. When we have literacy leaders, we not only do work together, we then get into the classroom so even the students have some benefit from that professional learning as well. And then we come back together to kind of talk about what we worked on with students to really raise our level of professionalism and to really give ourselves that opportunity to take risks with students, because for example, when I'm in another town, I'm working with students that are outside of Millburn. They're working with our students. So our students benefit from having a host of educators come in and work with them on this day. And then we can talk about what we learned and how we can grow as professionals in our professional growth. Play our video. There was an awesome video too.
I think it comes up later, but that's okay. Oh, it's on this next one? Oh, no. Well, it'll be a lot shorter now because the video won't play. As you can see, this is our agenda. We started out in the morning, and for anybody that is into education and knows Tom Marshall, he is an exceptional principal as well as the head of Literacy Leaders. Look him up on Google. You will see a million things how he does everything he does. I do not know. But he comes, he speaks with us. We get to go to the classrooms. We get to talk all about South Mountain and the things that we are doing there. And it is a very busy, filled day of working together.
So
Yeah, there's the video.
there was the awesome video. It was just doing us showing our collaboration. But in the morning, honestly, we did this before we had the 5-minute warning, so
We're good.
probably a good thing because the video is probably 5 minutes. But several years ago, we started really looking at where do we start with all things? What is it that we see through our data needs the most assistance? Don't worry about the video, seriously. We're good. And as we were looking at, the instructional supervisors were looking at all of their buildings, and we saw that word study was really an area that needed some targeted growth and skills. So we began a multi-year process of professional development and core instructional practices that we're still working on and refining to this day. So we spoke about that because we were light years ahead of other districts. So that's what they asked us to speak the most about. Tom also spoke and presented on scaffolding. We read different articles were presented. We did a lot of group work around those articles because we wanted to model what we ask our students to do. So it was our classroom. We had reading. Yes, it was assigned. We had partners, and we got together and we really then evaluated what we were reading, and we pulled it all together to prepare ourselves for what kind of growth could take place. So then we discussed syntax and writing conferences because that came up as an area of need in other districts. So we kind of talked about that, and we planned some small group and some individual work, and that's what we then took into the classrooms.
There we go. And as you can see, here we are in the classrooms with the students, a variety of principals, other administrators. You see some of our administrators here in Millburn. I think there were about 6 or 7 administrators that came throughout the district just from Millburn to be a part of this. So there was learning, like Heather said, for SMS students, learning for the SMS staff, and learning for the actual literacy leaders that were there.
And then in the afternoon, we continued our collaborative conversations. We did learning walks. So they all walked through, all the classrooms in South Mountain School, and they came back and they talked to us about things that, noticed and noticings about the building. So that way we could have some reflection. We did a lot of work. As you could see, there was information on every table, and we have a whiteboard table. So we all kind of spoke to that and added onto that, and then we kind of brought it all together. And that paired with our article sharing and article reviewing. Again, we modeled what we have our students do.
And again, another great quote, sorry. As literacy leaders, our primary goal is to foster a culture of reading and writing excellence within our school community. We aim to inspire, support, and guide teachers and students in developing the skills necessary for lifelong literacy. By promoting evidence-based instructional strategies and using data to inform decision-making, we aim to create an environment where all students have access to high-quality literacy instruction. Through collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to equity, we empower our teachers to effectively support diverse learners and ensure that every student becomes a confident reader, writer, and communicator. And in order to do that, we need to continue practicing using best practices and working with groups like this to see what other people are doing, what we're doing, how we compare, and what we can do even better.
So this is just another photo of the large group. There was about 30 plus administrators there that day from across the state. So it was really nice that we had that time to collaborate and do our learning growth together. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, South Mountain team. Is there any questions from the board?
All right, our next presentation is from our middle school staff for about middle school and Earth Day.
Good evening. Whoa. Good evening, Board of Ed. My name is Jill Sack. I am the very proud interim principal of Millburn Middle School. I wanted to share with you that a couple of weeks ago, I had the great pleasure of attending a field trip. And the field trip was planned and organized and led by 2 of our awesome teachers, science teacher Olivia Delane and physical education teacher Manny Hernandez. When we had some early planning meetings, it became very clear to me that both Olivia and Manny have an incredible, very strong passion for the environment, for sustainability, for connecting with nature, for really the passion, I believe, is about making sure our kids, our students, know how important it is that we take care of the earth. And so they planned this field trip, which is called Action for Earth Day, and they are here this evening to tell you all about it. Olivia and Manny.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. Olivia and I teach at the middle school. We both share a deep passion for the natural world. While she teaches 6th grade science and I teach health and physical education, we both agree that the environment should have a bigger presence in students' lives and across all subject areas. This belief was the catalyst of Action for Earth Day. Action for Earth Day is a school-based initiative that promotes environmental stewardship and sustainability for the 6th grade students of Millburn Middle School. While the immediate goal of Action for Earth Day was to directly engage students in hands-on sustainability and environmentally geared activities, we hope to cultivate an understanding for how human actions influence Earth ecosystems and teach students ways to contribute to a sustainable future. Our event was also an opportunity for community outreach. Millburn's recycling coordinator, Stacy Phelps, played a huge role by volunteering her time to lead an activity. 6th grade students were ecstatic to see their former SRO from Washington, Officer Ron Gunch. Even teachers and administrators stopped by different stations to witness students engage in a variety of activities aimed at building a more sustainable community. Our goals for the day, first and foremost, we wanted students engaged, and that meant creating a safe and fun learning experience. We wanted to show them how nature works as a symbiotic system, energy and matter moving through the earth, plants, animals, and humans alike. When one area of this dynamic is affected, it affects all others. And finally, we wanted to inspire environmental awareness and conservation. We wanted students going home with an understanding that their own decisions play an important role in the world they spend a day in. I'd like to say that we achieved all of this, and a little bit more. Action for Earth Day was carried out over the course of one day, but there were months of planning and preparation leading up to April 23rd. From a logistical standpoint, 100 6th graders were divided into 4 groups. Each group rotated throughout 5 different activities over the course of the day. Groups were assigned a chaperone. Each activity was led by a guide. It was a monumental effort that required staff to execute with intention and precision. They did just that. We would like to recognize an administrative team, Director of STEM, Christy Young, and a Board of Education that saw the value in our vision and never once discouraged us, but instead only offered encouragement and support. We thank you. To talk a little bit about the activities that the students rotated through, Miss Olivia Delaney.
Hello, I'm Olivia. Right up here you can see our schedule for the day. It talks about the 4 activities that the students rotated through. I'll go into each activity a little bit in depth, and then of course the slideshow has a lot of information that I won't be able to go into, but will be accessible to you, I am told. So we started off Earth Month with a presenter, a full grade assembly, Bill Kerwood, in the Magic of Recycling Assembly. The students were introduced to Earth Month with a preliminary activity. They introduced this to all 6th graders, and Bill Kerwood was funded by the Town Yard Initiative, so it was free to the district. And he presented information that was specific to Millburn Township. He researches each district and then presents information to the students that are specific to their town, so they could they could actually take away real world information about how to recycle in their town. And that was on April 3rd, about a month ahead of Action for Earth Day, to just make sure that the event didn't take place within a silo. We had a lot of lessons leading up to Action for Earth Day, like the assembly within my classroom. I was the teacher of the science students, all who went on Action for Earth Day. We had lessons leading up, so to make sure that they, for instance, when they designed a bird feeder, they knew why and how to do that within the day. The morning starting off, we met in the library. We just met for a quick meeting to make sure that every student had a real understanding of why we were there, what the purpose of the day was, our overall mission. We also met to review safety procedures and the schedule. Here you can see that half of the students, about 50 students, are walking over to the Locust Grove picnic area. After the initial library meeting, half of the students went with Mr. Hernandez on a town yard tour, and then half of the students came with me to the Locust Grove picnic area, and then we split them there again with amongst 2 different activities, 4 in total. Starting off with the town yard tour, this is where Stacy Phelps, who is our Millburn Town Forester and is the director of the town yard, she gave the students a tour of the town yard and then highlighted community programs. They then went back to the library and they used a brochure from the town yard to do a research assignment about like specific materials, how they could be recycled, when and where, and then they were left knowing real world application of this knowledge. Another activity that was school-based, so there was 2 school-based activities, 2 Locust Grove-based activities. The other one that was school-based was the upcycled bird feeders. This was led by Susie Michaels. She is a teacher of 8th grade Innovation Lab, and she utilizes the Makerspace, which is a large room in the middle school building in which STEM-related classes take place. We partnered with her 8th grade students who they practice the engineering design process throughout their whole course. The engineering design process is something that each science teacher teaches in their classes, and we were able to collaborate. Her 8th grade students were able to help my 6th grade students create these bird feeders using the engineer design process, which they had planned previous to the day. They also, about a month prior, we did a upcycling drive. We collected about 100 dirty containers, washed them, painted them, and then the students then were able to use them in their designs for the bird feeders. The 2 Locust Grove-based activities were forest therapy with tree bath. This was graciously donated to us by Tree Bath, which is a company that practices mindfulness and forest therapy. Forest therapy basically addresses mental health through nature-based experiences. In this activity, students practiced 2 full group games that got them engaged physically, and then they calmed down in a mindful practice and reflected and shared with each other. They connected with their emotions, other students, and their environment. And then I took students on about a 1-mile guided nature hike. Throughout this nature hike, students, we had a brochure, each student, and you could see them reading from the brochure. Each student read a station. I will have brochures if anybody wants to pick them up by the door. I did bring some for anybody, but each station either went into scientific cross-cutting concepts, community stewardship. I snuck a little bit of history in there. I talked about the Lenape people and also Washington Rock. So there was a lot going on the nature hike. These are all the people that said yes to making this day possible. I just wanted to give them a special shout out. All of our activity leaders are up top, and those are the activities that they led. My team down below, Team 6T, that's us, they're the chaperones. And the additional help, our administration, we have had countless meetings with them, and they've been nothing but supportive. When we first started this, John Connolly, our former principal, was the first person to say yes to me, and then throughout that experience, it's been nothing but support. And everybody that made this day possible, we were nothing but thankful. Here I gave the students a brief survey to see how they enjoyed the day. This was just rated out of a scale of 1 to 5, the enjoyment of certain activities, and also the overall value of the experience. I take like a little bit of a deeper dive into this on the next slide. But overall, just to summarize, the most enjoyed activity was the nature hike, and the most valued activity was the town yard tour. In the nature hike, students just enjoyed being able to connect with nature, move around with their friends, and learn about the community that they grew up in. And in the town yard tour, students were able to come away with the most valuable knowledge of what they could do with certain materials and how they could be recycled or repurposed. So here we just have a little bit. These are actual student responses that I just brought into bullet points and quotes. They really enjoyed in the upcycled bird feeder the hands-on creative activity. They enjoyed collaboration. For the nature therapy, they found it calming and meditated. I had parents email me that they thanked me. They said their student came back more restful and relaxed than the average day, so that was really nice to hear. And here I have a slide about the future. It is our goal to make this grade-wide or even a school-wide initiative. We think that this would work well in any grade because any scientific content could connect to Earth Day. If we were doing a grade-wide or school-wide initiative, we would just shift possibly the scope, the activities, or the location. If we were thinking maybe a possibility would be maybe just having, instead of 4 activities, maybe 2 activities and making a deeper dive into those activities, and then maybe having 2 different activities for each grade, so vertically they will enjoy 2 different activities each year. Or that was just an idea. And that's it. Sorry, I was very nervous. I didn't prepare like Mr. Hernandez did. Did anybody have any questions?
Ms. Bethina?
Hi, thank you for this. This was amazing to hear that the nature hike, getting the students outdoors and learning, and I particularly liked how you guys made it cross-discipline, so tying in the history of the town. I think children just in general seem to kind of connect more when they can touch, feel, and kind of see the same thing from different angles. I thought that was very well done. Thank you so much. I really hope that things like the meditation and the tree bath would be expanded. But probably like high schoolers could use it too. Maybe all of us could use it. So thank you very much for that. Thank you.
The reservation really does offer like just so much untapped potential. We spoke about the Rahway River in 2021, the Hurricane Irma that devastated the town with flooding, and most kids didn't even realize like the Rahway River runs right under the town, right? And so that's like a sustainability concept, urban design you could talk about. You can really just expand all just within the reservation. So it's kind of the thought of behind Action for Earth Day.
Mr. Reddy?
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, Ms. Dillon. One thing I have to comment you on, I echo my colleagues' comments, but the thing that impressed me most, honestly, is the fact that you guys did the survey post the event and tried to find out what resonated with the students. Loved the data-driven approach that you're applying here. Your former boss, Mr. Connolly, poked me, so I have to give a shout out to that. Great. Thank you, Mr. Hannon.
He absolutely knows that I'm data-driven. And they gave a lot of incredible recommendations for a couple of the questions were how they could improve some, just the day as a whole or the activities. And I've just been working them in throughout, and I probably hope to throughout the year. Thank you.
Awesome.
So I just want to congratulate Mr. Hernandez and Ms. Delane on your teacher leadership and taking the initiative and really driving this program and taking it from its infancy, which was just a crazy idea when you first came to me, and carrying it and seeing it through. That just speaks volumes to what you're doing in your classrooms and what you want to do for our students. So thank you very much for everything that you've done to make this happen. It looks like it was an amazing day.
Thank you, Mr.
It was. I wish you all could have been there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Delane, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you.
Oh, did I miss?
All right, and our final presentation is this 25-26 budget hearing with Ms. Schneider.
I think I have to echo Mr. Wolf about tough acts to follow, but I will say that the excitement of the budget is that we work really hard to be able to go ahead and fund all the things you just heard about, from the amazing staff that you've heard, as well as the different programs. Without the budget, those things wouldn't happen. And that's the hard part behind the scenes, is making sure that we do have the proper resources to make those things happen. So that concludes my hearing, if only. So tonight, we just want to go over, this is the official budget hearing for the 25-26 budget. And tonight, we are going to have the presentation, then the opportunity for both the board to have comments and questions, and then an opportunity for the public for any of their public comments or questions, and then later in the evening, the board will take a vote on the budget. Next steps for the budget, after this evening's vote, we have 48 hours to post the user-friendly budget to our website. Then the tax levy certifications go to get processed through the township and then filed with both the state and the county. Just a reminder of the process timeline that we've had. We're pretty much at the bottom of the chart, with the final step being tonight's hearing and final budget adoption, which must be submitted to the state by May 14th. We do both of them in one step, so you are having both the hearing and the adoption this evening. Prior to this, you will recall that there's been a lot of behind-the-scenes work with the original presentation to the public being back in January, continued input. The board approved for the budget to go to the county back in March. Since that time, the county has reviewed it, approved it. It was advertised in the item 2 weeks ago, and then we get to tonight's hearing. Reminder again that when we go ahead and do the set up for the budget, that we, just trying to close that thing, but it'll stay there. When we go ahead and set up for the budget, we do look at the district goals. They're up there for you to see, as well as the board goals, taking those into consideration as the priorities for the budget. It then breaks down further into different categories, with the fact that our priority, of course, is driven by curriculum and instruction, those different kinds of programs that you saw this evening, as well as taking into consideration shifts in enrollments, our camp program that we introduced a few years ago, as well as personnel, technology, and transportation. The main focus, as I said, is really on that curriculum and instruction, and everything's based on that. We do take into account, again, as I said, enrollment changes really is a driver for where funding goes in our different programs. And just a reminder, information that we've put out there before, because we do reports each year of where we are with enrollments, going back to the reporting based on our October 15th reporting. The part that you see there in the salmon pinkish color are prior years. The blue highlighted line is the current year, and green are projections for the next 2 years. You could see the asterisks there for 26-27. That year does take into account the fact that we will be having some additional housing likely coming on in the township that probably hitting later in the year in 26-27, but we do take into account that we might see some increasing number of students based on additional housing. As we've said before, we have been seeing some decreases in enrollment over time. We do see those numbers starting to stabilize in the next 2 years, again with that slight increase starting to happen again if we do see the additional students coming in for more housing. Most of the decreases, if you look at it over time, have really been at that elementary level, with the kindergarten numbers just being lower in the past couple of years than they had been in prior years. Then you see graduated decreases throughout the life as those cohorts move through. Again, other priorities we have is looking at personnel. As you know, the personnel is a majority of the budget. So next year's budget does take into consideration staffing needs as different programs take place or those enrollment adjustments, as well as took into account the district organizational structure changes. Technology, more and more, we depend on technology, being the infrastructure, our equipment, or even now most of our textbooks are used online, and so all of that takes into account the technology that's needed as well as the cost of those programs that we now access online. And transportation, while those costs have stabilized over the past couple of years, we are still cognizant of the fact that there are driver shortages and there are still potential escalating route costs. As you know, we've increased the cost of subscription busing. You'll see that on a later slide with revenue. We have not increased the anticipated revenue, even though the cost has gone up, because we're not sure if the increased cost is going to impact our participation in that program. Overall, the budget priorities take into account the salary increases, health insurance, property insurance, services, supplies, and utilities, different inflationary impacts that go above the 2% that we're capped with the tax increases. Those are things you've heard about before. Salary increases, of course, are based on our negotiations. Health insurance very typically escalates in high double digits, meaning in the 20% range for at least half the year. Property insurance, we've been seeing increases over the past couple of years. Services and supplies have gone up with inflation since COVID, really, but now with tariffs and other things coming up, we did anticipate that those costs will go up as well going into the future. And we've talked about in previous presentations that we have been told to expect our utilities to go up also close to 20% for electricity in the future. Curriculum and instruction, again, is the main focus, but the main thing that happened this time, the thing we discussed before, were the organizational changes that were taking place that affected both curriculum and instruction, as well as health and wellness, really working towards the curriculum oversight for alignment and continuity throughout our programs. Again, we've mentioned that with the organizational changes, it really wasn't an increase in staff, it was a realignment of staff. And you'll see that again on the staffing slide that's coming up, that we did have 2 increases, really for the health and wellness area, that we have a director of guidance and student services, as well as an additional elementary guidance counselor, again, really focusing on the student. Reminder that our majority of the budget is made up of salaries and benefits, 81%, and that other non-personnel makes up the remaining 19%. So staffing, again, majority of our budget, we align it with what the different goals are and needs throughout the district. The budget next year supports positions that were added in prior years. Positions such as the security officers that we added 2 years ago at the elementary schools. Those are maintained in next year's budget. We will have 1 or 2 positions that are going to be reduced because of the enrollment changes at different areas, but those are being achieved through attrition. They're not actually considered to be reductions. It's just making sure that our enrollments are supported where needed. With that, we do have additional special ed staff being added next year, and again, really looking at the organizational changes. I'll repeat again, it's not necessarily an increase of staffing, it was a realignment of staffing so that we had more curriculum oversight with all the adjustments that we're moving forward with. And we did add a director of guidance and student services, as well as an additional elementary guidance counselor. Very student-focused budget. The parts that we've talked about to date and through most of the presentations has been the Fund 10, or what we refer to as the general fund. The overall budget that is being submitted to the state includes both Fund 20 and Fund 40, our grants and our debt service. The grants really talk about our federal funding that we get, IDA for special ed, as well as other grants such as our Title I funding. The budget does take into consideration that we expect federal funds to be decreased in the future, so that was taken into account. And we do think that especially the, not necessarily the IDA funds, but other title funds will be reduced significantly. Fund 40, the debt service, is basically the bond obligations of what we owe, so they're already set into place by when we did the approvals of the bonds, but it does impact the overall tax impact, which you'll see again on a future slide. The revenues, looking at them, and we've discussed this before, that the main adjustments are going to be with the local tax levy. We have the 2% cap, but we're also able to go over by certain waivers. In this case, we took into account the health waiver that was available to us of $988,500, making an overall tax increase of 3.02%. That again is just on operating budget. When we take into account the debt service, it's a little bit lower. State aid, we did see a decrease. Basically, the decrease was just about $212,000. The difference there that you're seeing of $229 is the reduction in SEMI, the Special Ed Medicaid Initiative sources that we get. That's a number that's given to us by the state in terms of what to budget. But the overall state aid that we always talk about, we had a reduction of $211,913. That number would have been higher had there not been a state aid cap, which I will talk about on the next slide. Otherwise, the real changes that you see there are as you get to the bottom, reserve funds and additional budgeted fund balance. About of that $1,092,158 that we're showing projected for next year, $880,000 of that is specific projects that we identified. Maintenance project for stream bank erosion over by the paper mill field, and the remaining $580,000 is from our capital reserve that we're looking to transfer related to the replacement of the carpet at Nigel Field. If you take that away, you will see that it's not as significant. In fact, it's a reduction to the reserve, the additional fund balance that we used to last year. What we used in the additional budgeted fund balance was actually about $212,000. It's the amount that we had the reduction in state aid. We made up for that using fund balance that was available to us. A reminder about the state aid. Back in 2008, 2009, we were about 5%. That was the same time that there was the fiscal changes or major reductions that were going on throughout the country. About 2 years after that is when we saw a major drop in the state aid that was available to us. Basically going down to zero. Over time, it has built up. The past couple of years, we've seen some major increases, but again, started to see a decrease this year. Had we not been capped at 3% reduction over the prior year's state aid, we probably would have lost closer to $750,000. So that would have, again, been something we had to address. It's a much bigger number than $211,000. I'm guessing that next year they are adjusting the formula and working on it, but we probably can expect to see a similar kind of decrease going forward. The question will be, are they going to continue to cap that? Are they going to decrease it all at once? So something definitely to be cognizant of, as well as the fact, as we all know, where the fiscal discussions at the country level are going right now. So if we see that same kind of 2-year lag that we saw back in 2008, 2009, it could be even more of a decrease than that additional $500,000. The other side of the equation from the revenues is the expenditures. So just a little bit about what this slide shows. It reflects what goes into the budget software. And again, I remind everybody that available here as well as in the handouts and on the district website, we have a much more detailed layout of all of the information that goes behind these numbers, much more detailed than even what we're required to advertise. So if anybody's really interested in the numbers or the information behind this, I encourage you to go look on the website at the consolidated budget that's available there. The main thing to look at here, I would say, is the percent of total budget if you want to look at comparison from year to year. There's a little bit of deception because what the state has us report in the middle column there, the 24-25 adjusted budget, is where the budget is on February 1st. So transfers might have taken place between different account lines, or it will show the encumbrances that might have been carried over from the prior year. In terms of transfers, I know that there's been a question in the past about how much we do with transfers. Well, each month we do put out the transfers that get report approved by the board. Those are really much more detailed than what the state looks at. It gives you line by line. If we move money, let's say under transportation, and it's transportation from one department to a different department, we will show you that transfer in that report that comes out here. The state does not look at it that way. The state caps us at how much we can switch between categories. So the real switches don't add up to that much and don't really have that much of an impact when we're doing this comparison from year to year. What might show up there, and also came up in a prior budget question, is if there's encumbrances from prior years. The administrative line is probably the one that was affected by this the most. There had been a question about a judgment that we had an encumbrance for $500,000 that since has been resolved, and that money now will go back into fund balance. But that's the kind of thing that drives up that middle column. And so the final column, which is a comparison of the proposed to the adjusted, might get impacted by that. Again, most of the numbers, not much of a difference. It's really that administrative line that's deceptive when it shows a 7.9% decrease from the prior year. It really is a similar kind of budget from year to year. So again, I would say that the important part to look at is the percent of total budget. And those numbers really do not fluctuate that much from year to year. We had a very slight decrease in the regular program. Last year was at 34.79% compared to this year at the 33.33%. Not really that significant. Benefits, we're starting to see where that number's going up compared to prior years. Again, the number of our salaries and benefits is not changing that much from year to year, but we're starting to see a shift where the benefits are starting to cost a little bit more in terms of the percent of the budget, just because of that high inflation rate that's happening with the health benefits. A reminder, when we look at debt service, again, this is that Fund 40 that does come into the formula for the overall tax impact. We did back at the time of CAMP, when we were doing the 2020 debt bond sale, we discussed the fact of really looking to stay with a level debt service. We were looking to try to get to a $5.1 million flat debt service. We've been coming in slightly below that, but just a reminder to everyone that we're still looking at that, still considering the fact that We will have another bond sale about 3 years from now, in the 2027-2028 school year, which is the white box that you see all the way to the right there. Basically, when we first started with the camp campaign, you had the blue line bars that you see there. That was the prior to 2020. We then did the bond sale in red of 2020, followed by the bond sale in 2023, the green. And you can see that we really have been keeping that flat as we had indicated we would. That camp, just a reminder of what falls into that. Even though we talk about it being the flat debt service, it really looks at our overall maintenance. So a reminder that the maintenance projects include our regular maintenance. We did build in there the stream bank erosion project at the paper mill field I talked about, as well as that field carpet replacement. We also have ROD grants that we took advantage of, regular operating district grants that came from the state that helped fund 40% towards projects being done this summer, all in the area of HVAC repairs, as well as going on this summer will be our referendum projects from 2024. You could see there that's scheduled for this summer, the high school auditorium and science labs, the roof replacements, middle school weight room conversion, more HVAC projects, the Hartshorn glass block wall project. And finally, the tax impact. So starting with the general fund, again, looking at about a 3.02% when you take into account both the 2% as well as that health waiver. Debt service, as I said, keeping it pretty flat. We actually had a decrease, or will have a decrease for next year compared to this year, just partially the way that the payment schedule lays out, but also since we just had the bond sale last year, there was a lot of money in the bank that got us a lot of interest, so that helped. That offsets what the cost is. All of that interest that we earned in 1 year decreases what we're asking taxpayers to provide. So overall, when you take into account both the general fund and the debt service, we have an overall tax increase of 2.63%. How does that translate, though, to your tax bill? We do our tax increase, we look at it based on school year to school year, but when you get your tax bill at home, it's calendar year to calendar year. So the best way to illustrate this is if you look at the total tax levy for 24-25 of $102,063,965. If you divide that in half, it comes out to be $51,031,983, which gets split over 2 years. The first half being 50% from the 2024 calendar year, that second number in the middle section there, as well as the other half is the top line of the 25 calendar year. So you could see how that just carries through when you get to your calendar year comparison. When it then gets down to the level of each individual taxpayer, looking at an average assessed value of $100,000, you could see what the estimated tax is, $1,019 for 24 versus $1,033 for the 2025 calendar year. Again, that's the school tax portion of the bill, not the overall bill. That's a $13.67 increase on $100,000 or $137 annually on $1 million house. Again, if you go back to that consolidated budget that I said is available on the website and available here this evening, there is a little bit more detail that's there. It takes into consideration the fact that assessed values as well as equalized valuations for the overall municipality changes from year to year. When you do that calculation, it ends up being closer to $384 per year for the average assessed home value. That's about a 2.94% increase. So finally, just what are the next steps in the budget process? As I said, we're nearing the finish line. This evening, we're doing the public hearing. Next steps to get the user-friendly budget up on the website, which is required to be available within 48 hours. It probably will be there tomorrow. And then the deadline to send to the state. So just in conclusion, this budget provides for continued academic excellence, provides for the opportunities for innovation, combined with the fiscal responsibility, always keeping an eye on the close fiscal realities that we face. This evening gives the opportunity for the community input, and then the board will vote later this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Schneider. Any questions from the board? Oh, Mr. Lawrence.
No questions, just a comment. You could tell this is a very long process, and a lot of hard work and a lot of late hours goes into it by Ms. Snyder and her team, and of course the Finance Committee. And I just want to thank Ms. Snyder and her team, all the hard work and efforts you put into this past year. Even though this sadly would be your final budget for us, but maybe it's your best budget. So thank you so much for all your hard work over the years and this last budget. It's a great budget, and it really provides the students and district what we need in this coming year. So thank you.
Mr. Reddy?
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Thank you, Ms. Schneider. And I know this is part of the budget that we covered in the past, but it probably bears repeating. Can you please elaborate on the enrollment projection and how that plays into the impact on the budget near term, and also what the constraints are from a statute perspective in planning for projections into the future? Thank you.
Sure. So part of the budget process does take into account enrollment. It looks at a multi-year enrollment number. The state aid specifically looks at 5 years. Similar in the budget software, when one of the other waivers that's available to us besides the health waiver is an enrollment adjustment, if in fact we see enrollment going up. So 2 different places where the enrollment numbers will come into play. What it does is it really looks at a trend, so that if in fact the enrollment numbers are going down, it will take that trend and project out what the next year's enrollment will be based on that. So the fact that, for instance, we're seeing a decrease in enrollment, it doesn't take a per pupil decrease because of the numbers that have come down, but it sees that we, let's say, went down by 1%. It then will use that as the projection for the next year's budget. I'm probably going a little bit more into detail than what you want, but what I'm trying to say is it's not a one-for-one adjustment that's taking place as we're seeing enrollments. It's really a trend that projects out. Will it eventually have an impact on like our state aid, because state aid does take into account our numbers, but state aid, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Not every student is weighted exactly the same. Different students are weighted based on different needs. For instance, if we have students who are low income, they're weighted differently. Special ed students are weighted differently. So it's a very complicated formula. Again, as I said earlier, they are looking at the formula. It might change. So I can't tell you that there's going to be a direct impact as enrollment changes, but they probably still will count on enrollment. But don't think because our enrollment is going down, it means that we're going to see a significant cut. It really does look at trends when it's figuring that out. Does that help?
Thank you.
Any other board comments? I'd just like to emphasize 2 points that you brought up, that I think the top line increase was something like 3.02%. X the debt service, so this board and future boards need to be very careful of any cost that's moving greater than 3%. We need to worry about that, especially the recurring costs. Sometimes we have room in the budget for some one-off items, which is fantastic as long as they don't come with those recurring costs. And secondly, your warning on state aid is very much appreciated. It went down this year. We should think about living in an environment where that goes down for several years to come, and that'll put much more pressure on our budget. So we have to start thinking that way, and we We have been, because you've been saying it for a while.
And the other thing that I just want to emphasize, because of anyone who watches just state news and listens to it, a lot of other districts are facing decreases this year with having to do a lot of cuts. All of the budget managers worked really hard over the past couple of years in terms of when we had the extra ESSER funds, really projecting out when there were funds that were available, not increasing our expenses that we knew would become an issue when we ran out of those funds. So we really planned for a decrease getting to where we are now. And same thing going forward, that we really made adjustments and took into consideration things that were sustainable going forward, as Mr. Heinrichs just said. We didn't add things that we didn't feel they could continue into future budgets.
Very good. I believe we have a round of public comments now specifically on the budget. Are there any other ground rules?
Nope, just if anyone
Just
has any
if
questions.
anyone has any comments, please, about a question or a comment about the budget specifically, please approach the microphone.
Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. Again, I want to thank all the services that you provided us over the budget. But I'm just looking at the legal notice that was published in the item last week. And I just have general questions, because one was about the reserves. Because if you look at later on this evening, you're removing monies from different reserves. But when you look at the legal reserve compared to 2 years, it was originally like, I think, 4.6 million. Then goes to 2.3 million. And then next year it's anticipated to be zero. Was money used to pay judgments, or money is being taken out of that reserve to fund the operations of the schools? In addition, at the end of the bottom of the page, it says certain cost per pupils, and I think we should be looking at comparing different years of how the legal costs increased over various years. Now it's going to go down. I mean, one year was like $31, then it jumped to like $73. Where did the money go? I made an Oprah request asking for the computer printout. I have not received it. It's in process, but I think we need to keep a focus of the increase of our legal fees and where they went to. Was it partly to negotiate the labor contracts, or was it litigation? Also, if you look at total equipment costs, on the line item, last year was originally started as $15, then it was adjusted to $95. You know, what kind of equipment were we buying, and why was there such a large differential? I know this might sound petty, but coming from other municipalities, and as we heard comments of what's happening in South Jersey, we really have to be cognizant of the cost of what's happening. I mean, I know a lot of the costs are labor, but we need to understand, you know, what are attorneys' fees, and focusing on the number of students, because based on the notice, it's flat. Our enrollment will be flat in this number, and the question is, is that a real true statement? Because last year we had a mass exodus to private schools, you know, of a large number. Now, we've been asking, did we have a similar type of exodus this year? And there's really been no response. And again, thank you. But also, I think we need to be cognizant as the year goes on what the expenses are going on, but keeping an eye on the enrollment, because we have to remember that people move to this town because of our school system, and I am like a bridge and not a wall to the future. Thank you.
Mr. Feld, could I just see the line that you're saying with legal reserves? I'm sorry.
You know, first of all, the reserve was up here. I think it was legal reserve went from like, it dropped and then it goes to zero. And then down here has the cost. I don't know if that was a typo. You know, went from like 4.6 to 2.3, then goes to zero at the end of the year. The way I look at the reserves is more like a balance sheet, you know, saying at the end of the year, this is like an asset, you have monies in reserves, and it disappears.
Yeah, so I have to, I hate to do this, but I have to get back to you with the legal reserve information. I could look at the consolidated report and answer later when I get to my BA report. We actually do not have money in our legal reserve. Legal reserve from the audit refers to money that must be legally reserved. So it's encumbrances that go to next year funds oftentimes. It's not a legal reserve.
All right.
So I just need to verify that number.
The reason I say this, we're released on, that's why I really appreciate her services, because there's been other municipalities, even you look at this municipality, municipal budget, when you look at the end of the year, when they do the audit, you'll see in our municipality, we have about $32 million. About 18 has been reserved, is for reserves, and there's unencumbered monies. And that's what I'm really trying to find out is.
Yeah, we have, so the only reserves that we have that exist in terms of reserve funds, the capital reserve, maintenance reserve, and we also have a small amount in an emergency reserve. So I need to look that comes out of the state software, and I believe it's picking up what we legally need to reserve for the next year, which is why it's showing up as 0, because that has not been identified yet. It's correct. It's the other questions that were there, as far as the cost per pupil, we do keep a watch on that. It's something that I believe with discussions that have taken part at the board level in terms of metrics being presented. We do look at those metrics in the finance committee. I believe, as I said, that with some of the priorities that the goals that the board has set, that those metrics may be discussed more in the public, but they are available on the state website, Taxpayers Guide to Spending. We keep a watch on different areas, including the legal reserves. In fact, as part of both the budget process as well as a mid-year budget that takes place, that is a number that's watched very closely. To be honest with you, we tend to budget on the high side when it comes to the cost per pupil for legal, because unfortunately we sometimes do face some more expensive costs. It's something that we can't always anticipate. If something happens that we end up in a suit, or some matters that come up. We see fluctuations from year to year, for instance, with negotiations, as Mr. Feld brought up. In the years when we're in negotiations, those costs will be higher. In the years when we're between contract negotiations, that number will go down. Again, special ed type litigation that we might have. If it comes up, we need to plan for it. So we tend to plan on the high side, but then when we go and track what has been spent compared to other districts, after the spending is actually done, we end up very much in line with where other districts are. So you will see that fluctuation when you're especially looking at what was spent versus what is projected going forward. And the equipment costs, we sometimes do budget for equipment if we know that there are certain replacements that need to take place, like a bus replacement or other things that fall into equipment. Other times, often, you will see that it's a lower number that we budget for, but then when something comes up that we do a purchase, if anything that's over $2,000 is considered equipment. So we may even be buying, if we need a new, something goes out with a boiler or something like that that we didn't anticipate, when we do that purchase, that's when you will see a transfer that will take place. It will be going from a supply line to an equipment line just because of where we, by auditing standards, must report that, and then it gets tracked as a fixed asset. So hopefully that answers some of your questions. Anyone else from the public with a question or a comment? Otherwise, thank you very much. And I will look up to see if I can find that reserve information before the vote takes place.
Thank you so much, Ms. Schneider. All right, moving on, Board President's Report. Just a few things for this evening. First, I think there's just a natural tendency post-spring break to try to kind of coast into year-end. Unsurprisingly, that's not us. We are trying to do two things. One, certainly give the administration room to hire and transition and plan for next year. We have a lot of that going on. The board is being helpful where it can, but I think a lot of it is just giving them space to complete that. I was very excited. Each week, Dr. Diskin is talking about all the new hires. I think I met 6 of them tonight. Great mix of internal promotions and external candidates. So very excited to see all the new faces around the table, and new internal candidates willing to step up and take that new opportunity. So that's great. And then second, in the background, the board certainly has a few things to finish off for this year, but our eye is definitely turned more towards next year in the future. So maybe not talking about what policy thing we could change for tomorrow. It's like, let's let next year start. What changes can we put into place, talk about mid-next year so we can get them into the next cycle for next year. So certainly lots of good ideas came in this year. We haven't been able to process and think about all of those, but that work is definitely continuing in the background. Second, I'd like to just give a brief update about negotiations. They continue to move ahead. We signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with the teachers union, the MEA, last Monday. I can't speak to the details yet, but we agreed on things like contract length, the overall compensation increase, and a bunch of minor language changes. So significant progress there. What's still to go is taking that overall percentage raise increase and allocating it to the different levels of teachers. We do that through a salary guide, which we've spoken about previously. Hopefully we can get there, although we did hit a snag in our one-year deal last summer, and this is kind of where the deal fell apart. But we're certainly committed to working with the MAA and getting that work done and bringing this process to a conclusion. So we look forward to more progress there. Third, I would just like to give a shout out to the parent-teacher organizations. The PTOs do so much good stuff for us during the year. I appreciate all the volunteers. I bring it up now because we're kicking off our strawberry festivals this week. I think Deerfield is first on, is it Wednesday, Thursday? One of those days. Certainly, first off, I'm hoping for clear weather so we can actually do it on either the day or the rain day. And I love these events. It is, I think, the biggest activity that many of the PTOs put on, responsible for a lot of the fundraising that happens with the PTO organizations. And since I was a part of PTOs and now part of the board, I kind of have gotten to see the budgets, and the discretionary budget that goes to the elementary or all the schools is actually quite small. The amount of money that the PTOs can supplement that with is significant and meaningful. So I certainly encourage all the parents to support the PTOs kind of wherever they can. So again, let's pray for sunshine. I think that's all for me. Dr. Diskin, Superintendent's report.
All right, good evening. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week, which is May 5th to the 9th. This also includes Nurse Appreciation Day, which is on May 7th. And this week, we certainly celebrate our incredible teachers and our staff whose dedication, compassion, and commitment to excellence make Millburn a very special place for students to learn and grow. As a small token of our appreciation, Mr. Connolly and I are going to deliver a treat to the faculty rooms at all the schools and the Ed Center. We hope it makes you smile and reminds you that we do appreciate you and all you do every day. We'd also like to thank the PTOs who've planned special events for the staff and their teachers and nurses next week, or this week. Schools Nurses Day is May 7th. We celebrate and honor our school nurses' incredible dedication, compassion, and expertise. Their tireless efforts ensure that our students are healthy and safe, supported, and cared for each day. We greatly appreciate their efforts to meet the needs of Millburn students and staff. Our school nurses provide and advocate for quality student-centered care, from managing daily health needs to responding to emergencies and promoting wellness throughout our school community. Their role is vital. On behalf of the entire school, we extend our heartfelt thanks for all of our school nurses do, and happy School Nurse Day. I'd like to give a hiring update. We have made significant progress in the hiring of staff. They are here tonight. We welcome Melissa Bryan, our ELA and library media for 6 through 12. Yeah. We welcome Kristen Brinlinson, our supervisor of social studies, K through 12. Welcome. Mr. Gregory Mulford, our supervisor of visual and performing arts and a little bit of health and PE, K through 5. Andrea Knorr, our supervisor of 6 through 12 science. Dina Leslie, our supervisor of math and STEM K through 5. Tonight, we also recommend Catherine Alvarez as appointment of Director of Student Support Services and Guidance. I also want to announce that while the search firm of SEA conducts a very thorough process, we are going to appoint an interim principal for the high school while they conduct that thorough search. We have here tonight Mr. Logren, who has an extensive career as a high school principal in Homedale and has recently held interim positions in Livingston and Westfield. He is currently the interim principal at Westfield High School and will begin working alongside Dr. Myron to ensure a smooth and supportive transition. We look forward to introducing Mr. Logren at meet and greet events for the staff and community this spring. So, welcome. We have completed the screening and committee interviews regarding the vice principal position at the high school. At this time, we are going to pause while we search for a permanent principal and search for the VP, and instead move forward with identifying an interim vice principal to support Mr. Logren throughout next year. This approach will allow the incoming permanent principal to be directly involved in selecting their leadership partner. So more to come on that. We are conducting interviews. So we are certainly lucky to have all of you, and we wish you the most of success here in Millburn. We're also working on the Washington School Search. We are beginning a staff and parent input session scheduled for May 14th, and we will begin that interview process. Just to know that we have a lot of candidates that applied for the other positions that we will certainly draw upon, as well as the posting has already gone out. Our elementary school principal transitions are well underway. We have set up school visits with the current principal, and meet and greets for staff and community are being planned for late spring and early June. And last but not least, mark your calendar for May 20th from 5 to 6 p.m. for Millburn's Consortium Parent Wellness presentation this year on a very important and timely topic on growing problems among teens. Sport broadcaster Craig Carton will share his gambling addiction story and the impact it can have on those who go down that path. And as Mr. Heinrich said, Strawberry Festival season has begun. Deerfield School is this Wednesday, May 7th, with a rain date of Thursday, May 8th, and Hartshorn will follow next week on Wednesday, May 14th. So go out and have some fun with the kids. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Diskin. Moving on to board committee reports. Student representative report, Mr. Glatt.
Hold on, I guess we'll pause for a sec. Approving the style which my reports have been delivered to the Board of Ed. 81% of students showed approval. Students then gave their opinions on what they would like to see continue going forward with student representative reports. Many students commented that they loved the monthly surveys and felt that these surveys helped their voices to be heard. Some mentioned they are happy that the student representative report has evolved from just sports news to what it is now. There were also some ideas of improvements offered. Some students commented that the student representative needs to speak up and be more vocal. Obviously, this is something I need to approve upon because, as you know, I'm an introvert who never speaks at these board meetings. Some students also stated that they would like information to be more accessible regarding board meetings. All students use Google Classroom, and the class officers use it to relay information to their respective grades. It would be amazing for the future Board of Ed student representative to have a Google Classroom with all high school students in it to give bi-monthly recaps of Board of Ed activity. This particular idea supports Ms. Buffina's point from a few board meetings ago that not every student can access social media to see the Board of Ed highlights that I make or have any clue about the accomplishments of the board. The next survey topic was if test corrections help students' ability to thrive, and 87.3% of students answered yes. A common theme among students who were pleased was that their anxiety levels have been reduced and that they feel they have a second chance instead of failing. For students who weren't happy with test corrections, they felt they have become less motivated to do well on the first test because they get the chance to get the points back on the second try. The next survey question involved the daily quiet study hall room implemented a few months ago. 42% of respondents answered that they have utilized or know a student who has taken advantage of the room during common lunch. This shows that this room should remain an option for lunch next year. The next topic was junior privilege. 10% of junior respondents reported having less time than they thought they would have had. 60% of juniors reported that they managed their time well. Lastly, 30% of juniors reported not using the privilege during their trial.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Glatt? Ms. Shivani?
Not a question, but a few comments. So I firstly want to congratulate you for your college decisions and the class of 2025. And I really want to applaud you for the way you present your report and the insights that you give us as a board. I think it's really meaningful because a lot of times we don't have that kind of connection that you do with the students. So I do want to congratulate you on that. And I hope that the next person after you can continue that extensive, detailed reporting that you bring. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Oh, yeah, Ms. Bethina.
Hi, Zach. I just had actually, thank you for the surveys and the detailed response. I echo Ms. Shivani's comments. I did want to mention something about the test correction, not specifically to you, but just generally if there are people who have kind of a negative outlook on that. I think we kind of have to just think back for a second of what is the purpose of a test, right? I mean, and I think in the past, Millburn is kind of known to be kind of, we're known for our rigor in the past and the grade chasing culture. Sometimes somewhere along that line, the learning aspect gets lost. And I think with this test correction and some of the other policies that program committee worked on so hard to put in place was to emphasize the learning part of it, right? We called it the growth mindset. And the idea here is that it gives the teachers an insight into whether the learning actually happened. So there's a duality of tests, right? I mean, what is the reason for a test? You can kind of debate why we need tests in the first place. But one of the reasons for it is a good insight for the teachers to see if the students actually understood the concept and if most of the students didn't understand it, they can go back and reiterate it, and then give the students another chance to showcase whether they understood it, whether they learned that material or not, right? School is one of the few places in the world where you just get taught things. In real life, you have to figure this out yourself. So this is a good kind of a metric for the teacher to know whether what they taught was learned. So yeah, if the people thought about it from a learning aspect, I think it would make a little more sense of why we have it in place. Thank you.
Mr. Finkelstein?
Yeah, I also want to thank you, Zach. The presentations have been really great this year, and you know, we definitely got more this year from all the work that you've done. So appreciate that. And then I was just wondering, so do you post the results of these surveys anywhere? Can we see them?
Would you like me to start posting them? I can post every single result from this year if you'd like.
Sure.
Right now, I just have, my social media, but if I'm able to get a Google Classroom, I could post all of those results so every student can see.
Oh, but otherwise they're on your
Otherwise,
social
they are,
on your social media account.
because usually, these, this one I did over Google Forms, but most of the surveys I've done have been over Instagram polls, which are up for a day, and stories only go up for a day. Then the next day, I also post the results, which are up for a day. But I could, as a full post, which would be up for more than a day, I could post every result of every survey if you'd like.
Yeah. Or maybe an email to the board.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Also email that to the
Yeah.
So my thought would be for you to summarize that and put it together in some kind of report, send it to me, and then I can send it out to the board.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Let's move on to Garden State Coalition. Mr. Reddy?
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. I attended the GSCS meeting on April 23rd as the board representative. The meeting was hosted by Betsy Ginsburg, the executive director of GSCS. We had the guest speaker, Victor McDonald, who is the vice chair of the New Jersey Council and Local Mandate. So, Mr. McDonald also happens to be the person that conceived of that council and local mandates as a mechanism for regulating state mandates. He described the role of the council as a fourth pillar of democracy to keep the legislature and the governor in check, and advocated the council as a cost-effective mechanism for the school boards to push against unfunded state mandates. Respectfully submitted, Vishwa Reddy.
Any questions? All right, moving on to Finance and Facilities. Mr. Lawrence?
Thank you. We met on Wednesday, April 29th, 7 p.m. Board members present, myself, Asaf Farshudin, Jennifer Bathina, and Noel Bigman. Staff present was Ms. Snyder and Mr. Knight. Facility review, we reviewed the summer projects and high school auditorium updates. Under finance, reviewed the budget presentation we saw tonight. Discussed contract renewals scheduled for May 19th, organizational board meeting, and reviewed the professional service fees associated with that. Discussed year-to-date transfers. Also reviewed fund balance estimates. And also 2020 referendum has been predominantly utilized to improve the district, with the balance to be encumbered by the end of June. Under resolutions, the committee reviewed and recommends the following items for approval by the full board. 25-26 budget approval, disposition of 2002 Edinburgh piano, Wyoming PTO donation of benches, Go Guardian license renewal, final change order for canopy repairs at Washington Wyoming roof replacement, and math and focus print and digital textbook materials. Meeting ended at 8:50 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Any questions? Moving on to negotiations. That's me. It'll be a bit repetitive since I said this up in the president's report. We met on Monday, April 27th at 5:30 p.m. Board members present: Chris Heinrichs, Asaf Farshudin, Noel Bigman, Vishal Reddy. Staff present: Cheryl Snyder. Board counsel: Mark Tabakin. MEA is Louis Einfinger, Christina Yukorski, Chris Shelp, Bob Smith, Sandy Tekenor, Robin Finkelstein, NJEA, Louis Delgado, Thomas Manos. The meeting started approximately 5:30 p.m. The MEA and the board signed an MOU agreeing to major contract terms such as contract length and overall percentage salary increase. There are still significant details to discuss, including salary guides. The meeting ended at approximately 8:45 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Chris Heinrichs. Any questions for negotiations? Moving on to governance, Ms. Shivani.
Okay. So before I actually go into the minutes of the meeting, I do want to share a few comments regarding Policy 5460, which has generated meaningful discussion within the community. We have received a lot of good feedback, particularly around how we establish and implement the processes for approving post-secondary learning opportunities. These are important points that deserve thoughtful consideration and a well-planned implementation approach. The committee sincerely appreciates the input from the community. That said, because high school schedules need to be finalized imminently, the committee is recommending that we proceed with the second reading of Policy 5460, specifically to support the proposed changes to graduation requirements in social studies. I also want to reiterate a point that I made at our last meeting. Policy 5460, which focuses on graduation requirements, has undergone a couple of revisions over the past year in response to the ongoing efforts within the program committee to review grading and expand access and opportunities for students. Additional updates may be needed in the future as that work continues. While we are not able to incorporate all the community feedback at this time due to scheduling constraints, please know that your inputs remain vital. We will continue to work on the alignment of policy and existing practices in the district. We are committed to considering your feedback in future discussions, and we will continue to welcome additional perspectives as we work to better serve our students and reflect the needs of the community. I can now read the minutes. So the Governance Committee met on April 30th at 6:15 p.m. Staff members present were Mr. Conley, Dr. Diskin, Ms. Nancy Dries, and Mr. Bailey. Board members present were Jennifer Budina, Brian Lawrence, Mr. Vishwareddy, and myself, Priya Shivani. Ms. Dries left the meeting after policy items were discussed. The committee reviewed community feedback to Policy 5460 for graduation requirements. As I said before, we are unable to incorporate all the feedback due to the high school scheduling needs, but the policy is being presented for second reading today. Mr. Bailey presented the detailed personnel report that is going to be voted on tonight. The meeting was adjourned at 7:30 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Priya Shivani. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shivani. Any questions from the board? No. Moving on to program, Mr. Finkelstein. Yes, sir. Mr. Finkelstein.
Sorry. Maybe, Ms. Shivani, can you just also, I think the other change was the social studies you mentioned and covered. Can you just explain to everybody the change to maybe the option 2 or the summer comment, if that was really a change, or just give us a little more?
So there's no change to option 2 per se. There is a section which talks about outside enrichment. The option 2 change, whatever was incorporated last February is what remains. The change was to, I think there was some language added for enrichment programs and summer programs that are taken outside of Millburn High School. So I think the language that was added was to specify that the programs, if you take a summer program within the Millburn High School, Millburn School District, you would get credit for it, but anything outside of that is purely enrichment. Right. That was the change. There was no change to the option 2 portion of the policy.
And that's in line with what we were doing before, or is that a...
Well, that's what was incorporated in February last year.
Right.
Yeah. So I know that there are some, and I think that can be refined further. That and then there's also some language around dual enrollment, etc., which again, as I mentioned, the alignment of the policy to the practices in the schools, that is something that can be improved and can be discussed further. Dr. Diskin, I don't know if you want to add something there, but.
Yeah, we certainly continue to discuss that through, the options of dual enrollment and option 2. But at this time, the recommendation is to maintain the status that we had previously. And then the social studies one is about that sort of ability to, while the state requires a certain amount, we are saying that social studies only requires what the state requires versus what Millburn. And you can take more if you wish, but if you don't wish to take that, you're only obligated to do what the state requires, which I believe is 3 years. Which is 3 years, yeah. So that's a clarification.
Moving on to program, Mr. Finkelstein.
Yep, thanks. We had 2 meetings since the last board meeting. First meeting was Friday, April 25th at 2:30 p.m. Board members present were myself, Andrew Finkelstein, Mr. Reddy, Ms. Longley Richards, and Ms. Shivani. Staff present were Dr. Diskin, Mr. Connolly, the curriculum directors, Ms. Young, Ms. Martin, Ms. Abrams, and Ms. Graff. We started with Ms. Young, who presented a new AP chemistry book for review and approval, I think on the agenda tonight. Then the committee had another update on finals and work being done on tests to align assessments with instruction, standardized numbers of questions, and implement a common assessment in some subject areas where possible. And those discussions and work is ongoing. The committee then had a discussion about placement levels and if classes offered in Millburn could be taken outside of school. Mr. Connolly then gave the committee a quick update on the hiring process, which we heard updates on before, and then for this meeting. The meeting concluded at 4 p.m. The next meeting was this Friday, past Friday, May 2nd at 2:30. Board members present were myself, Andrew Finkelstein, Mr. Reddy, Ms. Longley Richards, Ms. Shivani. Staff present was Dr. Diskin and Mr. Connolly. Mr. Connolly provided an update on AP World History enrollment. The high school was targeting 1 to 2 sections for the pilot year only, and so the corresponding higher grading requirements are generally for the pilot, I will say, and could be revisited as the course expands beyond the pilot in future years. Mr. Connolly also presented some updates on staffing and sectioning in the high school and efforts to maximize staffing efficiency in the building. Excuse me, some smaller classes were identified as well to be discussed at a future date. Sorry. Sorry, recovering from a cold. Mr. Connolly provided a brief update on the high school grading policy, teacher discussions, and potential changes for improvement, ongoing discussions there. Excuse me, and then the committee was able to meet a potential interim high school, our now interim high school principal candidate. Dr. Diskin led that conversation, and the meeting concluded at 3:45 p.m. Thanks.
Any questions for program? Thank you, Mr. You got a question, Mr. Reddy?
So I want to bring attention to something that we discussed in the program committee. There's a lot of discussion in the community around more access to accelerated programs in the middle school. One of the surprising things, at least for me, in looking at the data available, is as we look at the NJSLA scores of students that exceed expectations. Mind you that NJSLA looks at exceeding expectations for an 8th grader as someone that's exceeding the expectations of pre-algebra, not algebra that we offer and a lot of other high-performing school districts offer. But pre-algebra is the basis of that exceeds expectation. And if you look at the numbers today, the NJSLA numbers tell a story that it seems that the number of students that we have in accelerated programs in middle school is actually higher than what the NJSLA scores suggest. Now, there are pimples to that story. Most students don't necessarily take the NJSLA tests seriously, and that's something that maybe is, as a school district, we need to look into as we look at this demand for more access to accelerated programs in middle school. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Finkelstein. I hope you're okay over there. Last but not least, middle school liaison, Ms. Longley Richards.
The Student Liaison Committee at Millburn Middle School met on April 24th, 2025 in the Millburn Middle School Library. Board members present were myself, Cynthia Longley-Richards, and Jennifer Bethina. Staff members present was Dr. Jill Sack, and student representatives were from 6th through 8th grade. This was our third meeting of the year, of the three times that we've met. So Ms. Bethina and I both arrived a few minutes late to the meeting, which was already in progress. Dr. Sack and the student representatives were discussing Chromebook usage during study hall. So there is a pilot program for the 6th graders that restrict access to gaming sites due to concerns, not only from parents, but from staff, that some students, especially 6th graders, were playing games and not doing any work during study hall. The conversation was about possibly also adding the restrictions to 7th and 8th graders as well. So the middle school team had met with Mike Scara to implement the restricted access and to have lists of acceptable sites approved. However, some students who were trying to do their work found it difficult to do research with many sites blocked. Students made many in-depth comments, including a student's view that the restrictions should be mostly for 6th graders, as the 7th and 8th graders are more mature and want to get their work done at this time. They asked if certain domains could be looked into, such as .org or .edu sites. And they also talked about some educational games that are available. Just a note that teachers can request sites be added to a list to be vetted and to be made available. Next, we talked about school spirit. MMS is finishing a school spirit month, and Dr. Sack checked in on the efficacy and value in the students' view. Many of the students felt that a month was too long, and themes were often just about wearing something specific, such as sports jerseys. Some ideas were shared, such as more activities like making a video or doing something that would help students learn more about each other and their backgrounds. But most students felt that shorter would be better, as many students would forget and they don't always read the morning announcements. So they all agreed that they needed more reminders of the themes, preferably the day before. And at this point, the peer leaders are the ones who choose the themes. So we then heard about the new Millburn Middle School mascot, who is Maverick the Mustang, generously given by the MMSPTO. The students all voted to choose Maverick's name and are enjoying having Maverick at their events already. There was a brief discussion about Career Day and not having it during study hall and maybe changing how it is scheduled. And the meeting ended at 2:50 with the sound of the chimes for the end of the day. Respectfully submitted, Cynthia Longley-Richards.
Any questions for middle school? Thank you, Ms. Longley-Richards. Moving on to administrator reports, Assistant Superintendent report. Mr. Conley?
Thank you. The C&I department has been working with the department chairs and has been working with MHS teachers to review final exam assessments. This review included the following: an analysis of the number of questions to the ratio of time, question design, standard and curriculum alignment, establishment of protocols for item analysis, and alignment of study guides to assessment questions and design. As a result of this work, changes are being made to strengthen the final exams. This collaborative effort will continue in the upcoming school year, focusing on the implementing of assessment protocols and developing sustainable processes for ongoing review. These efforts aim to generate meaningful data to inform instruction and support a culture of continuous improvement and assessment practices. You heard earlier, we adopted a new AP textbook. The high school is adopting a new AP textbook resource. It's the K-12 Chemistry AP Edition Print and Digital Bundle by Zamdal, and DeCoste. This widely respected text is known for its clear explanations, conceptual focus, and strong alignment with the AP standards. This update meets College Board requirements, keeping our AP Chemistry course certified and current. With growing enrollment, the print and digital bundle ensures that all students will have equitable access to a high-quality material, boosting engagement and learning. Building on the success of the digital tool in AP Physics, this resource includes AP-style questions and full-length practice exams, helping students prepare effectively for AP assessments. The middle school also adopted a new text for Spanish. The Repeteros 1 and Repeteros 2, Repeteros 1 and 2 have been selected as a digital resource to support the Spanish curriculum and ensure alignment with academic standards. Teachers in grades 6 and 7 will utilize Repeteros 1, while grade 8 will use Repeteros 2. This consistent use of a shared digital resource will provide students with a cohesive and continuous learning experience through their middle school years. World Language Awards. On Friday, April 25th, 2025, Millburn High School World Language Department hosted the 2025 World Language Awards ceremony to be celebrated and honored the amazing work of our teachers and students in French, Spanish, Chinese, Italian, and Latin. Congratulations to all the students who received awards for outstanding achievement, seniors, the National Latin Exam, earning the Seal of Biliteracy, and the MHSCA Awards for achievement in the Chinese language. Thank you to the World Language Department Chair, Frank Gontier, and all the World Language teachers for their dedication. The Tree Bath donation. Tree Bath is a company that provides students with forest therapy training and mindful nature experiences. As part of the Earth Day activities at the middle school, Tree Bath executed 4 separate 1-hour forest therapy sessions for a portion of MMS's 6th grade students in the South Mountain Reservation. These program sessions were provided as a donation by Tree Bath in the amount of $750. And then finally, Phyllis Fagel, the author of Middle School Superpowers, visited the middle school last week, and she discussed raising resilient tweens during turbulent times. The visit to Millburn Middle School with our staff first and then our parents later that evening, she shared valuable insight about middle schoolers and offered helpful advice to all of us. Respectfully submitted, John Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Business Administrator's Report, Ms. Schneider.
As stated earlier, on the agenda this evening is the final step for board approvals with regards to the 25-26 school budget. Resolution M3E adopts the budget as well as sets the school district tax levy for the 25-26 school year. As indicated in the presentation, the certification of the tax levy next goes to the township and then is filed with the county and the state. The user-friendly budget generated through the state software will be posted to our district website within the 48 hours. With regards to the question on the legal reserves, the part that's advertised is under the section of recapitulation, can't say that word, of balances. So what's listed there includes those funds legally reserved for the future years as identified in our audit. It is not reserved for legal expenses. So it is part of the audit, which is why it's $0 for next year since the audit wasn't done. And so the funds have not been identified. So it is encumbrances, yes. I do want to thank everyone for their assistance, energy, and input in developing a balanced budget for 25-26 that supports the district's goals and initiatives. Although the budget presentations first come to the public in January, the budget development process is a long one that actually began in full force back in September, with many people's involvement. So I wish to thank all the budget managers, especially those here at the Ed Center, the board members on the Finance Committee, and the business office staff who worked over the past 8 months to help develop and finalize the budget to get us to this evening's hearing. Business agenda item M3F is to approve a change order with Northeast Roof Maintenance for the canopy repairs at Washington School and roof replacement at Wyoming. We typically build allowances into our construction projects. This change order is a credit for the unused portion of this project allowance. M3D, disposition of a piano at the high school. This is from the high school chorus room. The piano that's there is currently not playable. We're actually looking to dispose of it to make room for the temporary location of the auditorium piano while the work on the auditorium is being done this summer. Resolution M1B is for a donation from Tree Bath, as Mr. Connolly just mentioned, for providing the forest therapy school program at the middle school that you heard about in earlier presentation. We appreciate the generosity of Tree Bath for enriching our students. And Resolution M3A is to accept a donation from the Wyoming School PTO of 4 new benches to be installed at the upper playground at Wyoming School. This is a continuation of the playground enhancements being done and supplements multiple prior donations of playground equipment. Thank you to the PTO and the Wyoming community for the continued support of the programs and for the complete overhaul of the recess experience for the students. And finally, Resolution M3G is the approval of the proclamation read earlier tonight, showing appreciation for all of our custodians and specifically recognizing Dan Davis. Thank you to everyone who voted for Mr. Davis. We've been told that the number of votes for Dan far surpassed any others and that he received more votes than Cintas has ever received for an individual before. A recognition well deserved. Congratulations, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Moving on to public comments. Please state your name and address for the record. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Responses to question and comments will be posted to the district website before the next board meeting or within 10 school days.
Good evening, Christian Germain, 70 Northern Drive. Last fall, your Board of Education adopted its board goals for the 2024-2025 school year. Among the 5 objectives set specifically by your board, 3 stood out, and I quote, not for you because you naturally know them, for our community. First, begin the process of developing a multi-year strategic planning framework that aligns with the district's vision and goals to effectively guide educational initiatives and resource allocations. 2, foster constituent involvement and increase communication to improve engagement with the district and community. And 3, formulate annual internal and external metrics needed to assess and act on district progress. These board goals are especially important at a time when many administrators are new to the district. You have here a unique opportunity to define a clear, forward-looking vision and to bring all stakeholders on board. Clear and effective communication, supported by meaningful, well-chosen metrics, will be essential to the success of the new organization that you have put in place and the onboarding of our new staff. Have you planned to, at some point, update the community on the progress made on these 3 goals? Or have the circumstances led you to change or postpone them?
Thank you, Mr. Groma. Seems like you're next.
Okay. So my next question is about BoE policy 5460 on high school graduation, which is scheduled for readoption at today's meeting. I commend the board, the board's efforts to ensure that recent changes made by MHS, such as reducing the social studies requirement from 4 to 3 years and allowing credit for summer courses, are supported by this policy. That said, the review of this policy also offered an opportunity to examine its provision more closely. And I trust the board will agree that it's equally important to ensure that MHS fully implements all aspects of the policy, including some long-standing provisions that currently appear to be overlooked. One is that students may fulfill the world language requirement by passing a high school administered assessment. This option could benefit students, especially current 8th graders, who are already fluent in another language and may prefer not to enroll in additional language classes at MHS. So, and this is for the administration, since your board policy is crystal clear, could you tell us whether this opportunity will be offered in the coming weeks to our 8th graders and high schoolers? Second question. Another provision of the policy that you are about to reapprove states that students may earn graduation credit through successful completion of assessments that verify student achievement in meeting or exceeding New Jersey standards at the high school level. This provision, meant to apply across all subjects, has been underutilized at MHS. For example, students, including those in 8th grade, who have independently mastered material in geometry and or algebra 2, which are the NJSL standards, should be allowed to take school-administered assessments. And if they pass, they should receive graduation credit and be permitted to advance to the next level. Same question. Will this opportunity be offered to current 8th and 9th graders? And so here is my third question. 2 months ago, at the March 10th board meeting, it was suggested that our district adopt a one waiver per school year policy. It was suggested by me, by the way. Allowing students to override grade-based placement in one course per year and challenge themselves by enrolling in a higher level class. 1 month ago, the chair of the program committee indicated that this proposal had been discussed. Could you please update the community on whether a decision has been made? Specifically, will this opportunity be offered to students for the 2025-2026 school year, or has the board decided not to move forward with it at this time? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grima. Any other public comments? All right, moving on to discussions. We have none scheduled for tonight. Moving on to board action items. Item 1, instruction agenda items. Any carve-outs? Can I have a motion to move instruction agenda items M1A through E in consent agenda format? Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Shivani can second. All in favor? Can I have a motion to approve instruction agenda items M1A through E in consent agenda format? Mr. Finkelstein, Mr. Reddy can second. A, resolve to approve professional development request. B, resolve to accept a donation from Tree Bath. C, resolve to approve a one-year agreement with Linkit. D, resolve to approve a one-year agreement with Halton Mifflin Harcourt Educational Company for grades K through 5 Math and Focus program. E, resolve to approve the following test books for adoptions as listed below. Any comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Bethina?
Yes.
Mr. Bigman?
Yes.
Mr. Finkelstein? Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Longa Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Ms. Shivani?
Yes.
Mr. Heinrichs?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 2, personal agenda items. Can I have a motion to approve the personnel report and addendum dated May 5th, 2025? Ms. Longer Richards, Mr. Finkelstein can second. Any comments? Roll call. Did you have a comment? Mr. Reddy?
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm very excited for the new hires, and it's clear from the number of hires since the investment the board is making in curriculum development and creating consistency and congruence across the school district. I'm also very, very excited for the current elementary school students. They'll be able to take full advantage of these changes the investments will bring forth. I'm definitely looking forward to a bright future for the school district.
Thank you. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bigman?
Yes.
Mr. Finkelstein?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Longa Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Ms. Bethina?
Yes.
Ms. Shivani?
Yes.
Mr. Heinrichs?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 3, business agenda items. Any carve-outs? Can I have a motion to move business agenda items M3A through G in consent agenda format? Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Shivani can second. All in favor? Can I have a motion to approve business agenda items M3A through G in consent agenda format? Mr. Bigman, Ms. Longer Richards can second. A, resolve to accept a donation from Wyoming School PTO of 4 new benches. B, resolve to approve the purchase of license agreement with CDWG for Go Guardian. C, resolve to approve the annual tuition and program rates for the Union County Educational Services Commission for the 2025-2026 school year. D, resolve to approve the disposal either by auction or as refuge of the 2002 Altenburg piano. E, adoption of the 2025-2026 budget and tax levy. F, resolve to approve a change order regarding the canopy repairs at Washington Elementary School and roof replacement at Wyoming Elementary School project. G, resolve to approve a proclamation recognizing Daniel Davis, Deerfield custodian. Any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Finkelstein?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Longley Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Ms. Bethina?
Yes.
Mr. Bigman?
Yes.
Ms. Shivani?
Yes.
Mr. Heinrichs?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 4, policy agenda items. Can I have a motion to move policy agenda items M4A to approve policy 5460 in second reading? Ms. Shivani, Ms. Bethina can second. Any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Longley Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Ms. Bethina?
Yes.
Mr. Bigman?
Yes.
Mr. Finkelstein?
Yes.
Ms. Shivani?
Yes.
Mr. Heinrichs?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Is there any old business for board members to discuss? Any new business? Second round of public comments. Same rules as first round.
Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane. I just want to go over a few points. One, I want to thank you for last Tuesday's forum that the whole community was invited to. It was very interesting. The people that are doing the investigation, talking about the importance of civics. And along that line, you might want to, in one of your newsletters, and talking to like the high school students, reminding them of the deadline if they're 18 to register to vote. And you might want to mimic the senior hotline layers for even just not to the parents in the community, just telling them what the deadlines are to vote, to register to vote, and when the deadlines are for voting in the primary coming up in June. Also, I think it might help the community because there's been a lot of change in various posts that you give us like a scorecard, explain to the people who are leaving and who are going to be the new people in place as to July 1st, 2025, because a lot of people were introduced today. But again, as I said at the last meeting, a lot of the community has no idea the biography or where they're coming from, and that might help, the communications within the community. Also, we were talking about the population of students and how that can be affected. We need to keep an eye of a case that was argued last week in the United States Supreme Court about charter schools, and if the religious charter schools are allowed to happen, what can be the impact of our budgets? That could be a very big issue in the future. In addition, there were 2 cases that were issued today. One was a Third Circuit case involving Chatham, about a parent who challenged the curriculum and about establishing religion, but there's a paragraph. She lost the case, but there's a paragraph about the role of parents in the educational system. I recommend everyone to read that opinion. And in addition, there was a state Supreme Court case that came out about bidding, public bidding, and you might just want to be aware of what the state Supreme Court said about bidding, because a lot of things we do, we go out and when bids can be rejected. And I just give that as something to offer to the community. But I would talk about the civics, about the high school students. There could be a good group of them who have just turned 18 or have the right to vote in June, and they should be maybe apprised of that. Again, thank you for all your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feld. Any other comments? Moving on. Any board member comments? Mr. Reddy?
I want to make two comments, one on the metrics and the other one on strategic planning. The governance committee is working on the metrics, so that's an ongoing discussion that we don't have any progress to report in yet, but there's more to come. On the issue of strategic planning, as Mr. Henriksen alluded earlier, we need to start planning for the next year. Now that we are close to completing the organizational transformation, the board should be looking at redefining the mission of the school district itself. I can't speak for all of you, but my hunch is most of you, or all of you, would agree that the current mission statement of the school is inadequate. Last year, I identified this as a key area of work for the board, and that was the impetus behind the strategic planning committee. But the flurry of other board and administrative actions preempted that for the last 6 months. We've already started updating and modifying some policies and regulations. A new mission statement will provide the North Star for those changes, and will help us identify whether we are moving in the right direction or not. The new mission statement will also be critical for the new leaders of the school and synthesizing the policies and regulations of the board into action that will enhance the learning for our students. So that's hopefully something that collectively we can now make progress on. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that, Mr. Reddy. I think we just stood up the Strategic Planning Committee with Mr. Farashudin as chair, Mr. Lawrence, Mr. Bigman, Mr. Finkelstein, I think will comprise the committee. So that is getting moving. We did delay it to get through the organizational changes and make sure we had that right. So a little later than we wanted to get started, but it's definitely a longer-term process. So the goal was definitely to get it started this year. Any other comments from the board? One last thing from me, I just wanted to say a thank you to Ms. Steffner. She was the consultant we brought in to help us through not only the organizational changes, but she also did a lot of the job descriptions and thinking about how we make these positions and what actually goes in them when there were openings. So she did a lot of work in the background on that, so it was all much appreciated. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Bethina, Ms. Shivani, can second. All in favor? We are adjourned.